Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're trying to keep the spooky thing going by playing the spookiest deck I could find that won a challenge, and Merfolk is pretty creepy. Got that INNSMOUTH horror vibe, and this is a deck piloted by Mboy that split the finals of a challenge, so we're going to count that as a win. And you don't see Merfolk very often, so it's also an interesting one to have a look at. So what does this deck do? Well, we play a bunch of fish, and then our fish pump our other fish, sometimes giving them Island Walk, sometimes giving them the ability to sacrifice to be a force spike for non-creature spells, and we turn our guys sideways. A Force of Will and maybe Sink into Stupor can be a little bit of interaction along with the Wasteland and the one Otawara, but mostly we're just playing guys, turn them sideways. These guys are quite often going to be uncounterable because of Cavern of Souls and Aether Vial. And yeah, we're just fishing people hard here. We have 3 Mistcallers in the deck, which is an unusual one. This is basically an answer to Reanimator or Call of Calling type Nadu decks, Green Sun Zenith, Natural Order, that sort of thing. This can deal with that. We've got some Tide Shapers, which is a 1-mana 1-1 that's sometimes 1-mana 2-2, or it can be a 2-mana 2-2 that turns one of their things into an island. We've got some Phantasmal Images, which become more Lords for the most part. Silvergill Adept to draw us a card and just be a body. True-Name Nemesis to have an unanswerable creature, so we can just make this huge, turn it sideways and be done with it. And then we have 4 of this new card, Floodpits Drowner. It's a 2-mana 2-1 Flash Vigilance. When it enters, we tap a creature, put a stun counter on it. We can pay 2 and shuffle it into their library along with this card as well. So we can shuffle this and our opponent's creature in. So we have some removal now in the form of a Merfolk, and we can put this in our opponent's end step, tap that creature, get an attack with it, and then use it as a piece of removal, which is a nice new piece of tech. But yeah, this is the list that split the challenge final. You don't see Merfolk very often. They're a little bit creepy, little fish people. So here we are. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Graveyard Hate. We've got some Artifact Hate. We've got probably the best fish in Legacy, which is going to be messing up people's lands. We've got some Blasts, and we've got some Consign to Memory for Eldrazi and that sort of jam. All right, yep, this is Mboy's Legacy Challenge winning Merfolk deck. So let's get stuck into it. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to see my videos early, you can become a YouTube member for £1 a month and get to see them early. All right, plug over and done with. Let's bring the INNSMOUTH horror to Legacy. We're on the play. This hand seems quite slow for what we want to be doing. But True-Name Nemesis is quite the Magic the Gathering card. And it will be uncounterable, and we have a Force of Will. We're not doing anything till turn 3 outside of this Force of Will. I think we have to mulligan something a little bit more. Okay, we can deal with this one. We keep this, throw back one of these islands. Lead off on island into Aether Vial. Gets us on board a little bit quicker. Like, there's definitely a lot of matchups where that other hand would have been good and what we wanted. We don't know the matchup. I think we need to make sure we're doing something on the early turns to either force some interaction for our opponent or be able to do something of our own. So this way we can just make a creature here. Phantasmal Image, that's pretty good. So we can Floodpits Drowner in our opponent's end step, untap, double Lord, and bash. See what flavour of Verdant Catacomb deck our opponent is. Lush Portico. So we could be looking at some kind of like Abzan Depths list. Forest. We don't really get the value by doing this. Or we're getting something in the end step here. I'd like to Presage You our... Sure, we'll activate it here. I think it's probably going to be better for us to have this as a removal spell. So I think the plan here is to drop 2 guys and have a bunch of power in play. How our creatures die when they're targeted? Mostly what doesn't matter, because usually if they're getting targeted, they're going to die because it's a removal spell. However, Maze of Ith is one of the things that changes that dynamic slightly. I will pay 3 life. I will play out this Master of the Pearl Trident. Do I want to play out another one here, or do I want to have access to the Hexcatcher? I think we could just hold open either of these and that's fine. How many fish would you like to face, opponent? Sylvan Library, sure. Alright, so flashing the Lord here. Right, I'll play out a Master of the Pearl Trident. Let's get some even bigger creatures. We'll copy this one so that if they have a removal spell, it doesn't work out so well for them because we're copying this one. Right, we have a lot of power in play. And we have a way of tapping down any blockers they may be able to muster up. This doesn't target a creature actually, so when we play this, they would have to remove the Master of the Pearl Trident in response. So by playing this one out, it means that we always get a Master of the Pearl Trident. Alright, opponent, what are you going to do to try and stop our mass of fish overwhelming you? Am I expecting some sort of sweeper from our opponent? Not really. But do we need extra damage? Let's say they kill a Marshal of the Pearl Trident. What does that actually do for us? I don't think they're going to have any sort of sweepers in their deck. I think we can just go hard this way. This gives us more things to pitch to Hexcatcher. So many fish. An Abrupt Decay. They're still dead to this. Assassin's Trophy. We just force spike that. Just still lethal damage. Alright. Pretty impressive amount of damage we managed to stack up there. Not too shabby. I think our opponent is on some sort of like Abzan mid-range style list. They did show a lot of stuff that could be jammed up by Harbinger of the Seas in that particular game. Is that something you want to do? If they're trying to do like loaming stuff, then we can shut down any of their tech lands, and that's pretty good. Other than that, I don't really know if any of these are going to be that useful until we see more of our opponent's deck. The Aether Vial is a weird one. Reduces more mana for us over a few turns. It allows us to multi-spell by having like this on 2. We can play a guy and then violate a guy. That's quite handy, especially if our opponent's going to be attacking us with Wastelands. But maybe we're better off just having these Harbingers. Just playing one thing a turn. That Vial does feel a little bit slow. We can keep one Vial in. Just keep playing out the guys here. Let's try that. I do not remember the last time I played with Merfolk in Legacy. Or anywhere. Maybe it was like Lorwyn era. Okay, this is fine. We've got a little bit of removal. We've got ourselves a way to stop something really scary happening. We can mess with their land with the Tide Shaper. A Thought Seize. Alright, so they can take out... It's probably the Lord or the Drowner here. If their mana base is a little bit sketchy, they might want to take the Tide Shaper. But the Mistcaller's not doing much here. Maybe it's the Mistcallers that's supposed to go for the Harbinger, but then we're trading a 1-drop for a 3-drop. Obviously we did trade a 1-drop in Vial for it. The Vial's not a 1-drop creature. Okay, let's just get our Mistcaller in. Next turn we can Tide Shape away their land. This is a very creepy looking Merfolk, isn't it? Cabal Therapy is pretty good. They know what we've got, so they get to choose. It's probably the Floodpits Drowner. But like I said, if their mana base is sketchy... Oh, they named the Tide Shaper. Okay, that tells us a little bit about how their mana is over there. So if we can find ourselves a Harbinger of the Seas in the near future, we might be able to shut down a couple of their colours. March of the Pearl Trident. That is certainly what I'm all about casting here. We have many Lords, so it's not exactly a surprise we drew one. Floodpits Drowner. I think we're attacking here. Do I think our opponent's got a removal spell here? Let's play out the Mistcaller. We can flash in the Drowner in our opponent's end step if we want to. You may sacrifice another permanent. It's got Abrupt Decay on it. Okay, our opponent's got a cool deck with some weird stuff in it. I think we're just jamming in some more power. So that was a 4-mana removal spell. We have double Drowner, so I'm quite happy to play one out here. Our opponent hasn't shown us many creatures, but they must have some if they've got Cabal Therapy in their deck. Go Gadget Fish. Phantasmal Image. Not really at its best here. We'll attack Vraska with one and then them with the others. We can flash in a Floodpits Drowner if we need to. A Delighted Halfling. Okay. We can tap that down. And then if we draw a Lord, we just win. If our opponent doesn't have anything. Get stunned, Halfling. Some kind of Lord? Some kind of Lord. Let's bash. An Abrupt Decay. Sure. So this will only put our opponent to 2 now. But if they play another creature, we can play a Phantasmal Image, copy the Drowner, tap that guy down. So looking good for the little fishy people. Alright. 2-0 for the first game with the fish people. Let's go to round 2. On the play for round 2. This looks good. Mistcaller into Lord. Just go wild. Or Lord, not Lord. But I'm sure we'll draw another one. Devourer of Destiny. Okay, I think we get the Mistcaller out first. The Tide Shaper is a way we can actually disrupt our opponent's mana, which is quite an important thing to do. So we might be doing the Tide Shaper before we play any of the Lords out. Just try and restrict our opponent's ability to do things this game. They quite often don't make a play on turn 1. So if we can strip away that land that they play on turn 1 with our Tide Shaper and then hold up a Force of Will down the stretch. We've also got 4 Wastelands in our deck. I don't really want to play a Wasteland. I want to commit something to the board though. A Yavimaya. We can get rid of that one. So we have Merfolk here. make it harder for them to cast a Mica Spawn. And we can try and just play some Lords. There's a Wasteland. A Grim Monolith. Alright, our opponent's on a slightly different build over there. Let's get the Master of the Pearl Trident in. This is 5 damages. Like, they are very much on the Eldrazi. Like, we've seen the Thought-Knot Seer and the Spirit Guide. And Chalice. So what we got? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 damage, possibly an additional 3. So we might be able to kill our opponent next turn. Alright, an Ancient Tomb. Love to see them tap that. They're going for the Devourer of Destiny that we know is in their hand. We will counterspell that. Yes, they still get the kill off of it, but we end up not having to face down a 6/6. Although, do we care about the 6/6 if we're just going to be making more Lords and having the Island Walk? Maybe we don't. Kozilek's Command. We're going to say no to this one. Our opponent clearly wants to have access to green mana here. 2-power Island Walk is very good when they're trying to put some creatures in play to block with. Maybe that was a bait spell. I know it wasn't a bait spell. Okay. So, the Yavimaya is back to doing the thing they want it to do. Would I like to have a Force of Will up, or would I like to bash for an additional 2 points of damage here? How are we beating that 6/6 they've got? I don't know. I think we have to jam like this and hold up the force. Our opponent's pretty low. Cavern of Souls. Alright, really punished now. Is it Mica Spawn? Or are they just going to go for the big boy? It's the big boy. Alright, they're going to devour our destiny, something fierce. Right, so we have a 1/1, they have a 6/6. That doesn't feel great for us. I definitely regret not getting that extra damage through, and we could have got it through. But we didn't know they were about to play a Cavern of Souls. Attacking isn't great for them unless they've got an additional follow-up, and if we find a Tide Shaper, we can just jam them up. Our sideboard should improve this matchup greatly because we've got a 3 Harbinger in it. A Black Eldrazi spell, or is that just going to be part of the colourless cost? Alright, I kicked Soaring Mica Spawn. Are we just going to lose 2 lands here? Feels like we are. They're going after the island with the ability, which means they're probably getting the Wasteland for the Cavern. Yep, there it is. And they've already got another Wasteland as well. Yes, I think our opponent is the superior creature deck to Merfolk by some margin. However, we do have a nice trump card in the matchup. True-Name Nemesis, also a pretty nice trump card. Alright, our opponent's just sort of styling on us here. Glaring Flesh Rager that can't be countered. You're going to bash for your 6/6. Just a 3/3. Very cowardly. An Aether Vial. I guess we're playing it. I think the amount of turns it takes for this to do something from this point on is not going to be great for us. Surely the 6/6 comes in. If it's just a 6/6. Alright, am I taking 9? I don't think we're winning if we lose all of our creatures here. Let's tick up the Vial. True-Name Nemesis. So next time we have to chump block. We can chump block with just one guy. And maybe that's okay. I don't want to trade my Lord of Atlantis. I don't think I do. Just another Kozilek's Command. No, they're just untapping the Grim Monolith. Oh, that's still pretty worrying for us. It means they've got some sort of big player ahead. They're just going to shoot for something here. Or just to kick Mica Spawn. This looks like a tutor. We're getting a tutor. They're going to 4 life. We don't have a Tide Shaper though. So we can't just get those last points of damage through. So Mica Spawn. Yep, so this is going to knock us down to 5. Going to lose our land. And they've got themselves an Eldrazi Temple. That allows them to maybe cast another spell here. So we have to block the Devourer here. And then I guess we trade here. I don't believe we have any ways of winning this game. Like the Drowner guy can tap some stuff down, but nah. Okay, we're just cooked there. Alright. But we have Harbinger of the Seas and Consign to Memory. That's all pretty darn tasty to me. What are we looking to remove here? It could just be like Mistcallers. I guess they go. We could just board out Forces. Forces can be a little bit whatever here. But we do have lots of ways of interrupting their Cavern, so I think we're supposed to keep the Forces. We're supposed to get rid of the Aether Vials. Aether Vials are good against our opponent's mana denial strategy. And if we want the Consign to Memories, they work very nicely with the Aether Vial. Maybe we're just trimming some of these like little creatures here. Get rid of a couple of these. I like the True-Name quite a lot here, because it just beats what they're doing. Maybe, are we just getting rid of Phantasmal Images? Although these can copy our opponent's Eldrazi. Although a lot of their Eldrazi aren't really worth copying. Like, yes, they have the big ones, but some of them are just 4 mana 3/3s. Is it better to have the Silvergill Adept or some Phantasmal Images? Maybe I like the images more. Alright, we'll try this. This hand has a lot of interactive elements. We need more threats, but they will come eventually. So we're going to level up our Vial. Harbinger of the Seas, that's very much the best card we have here. A Cavern, that makes these Consigned Memories look a lot worse. Aha, they can't counter this because they had to use this for colourless mana. Excellent news. Can I draw a land? Land would be lovely. Can we draw it? Come on, deck. We can. Alright. So now, if they have a Dismember, we can then flash in a Phantasmal Image and keep our creature alive. A Wasteland, that's not going to do anything here. A Grim Monolith. We don't have an answer to this. So, back in the day when I used to play Eldrazi, a long time ago, when it was just the first round of Eldrazi, they used to see some lists with Grim Monolith in to beat like effects like Blood Moon. Play this island. We will attack. A Dismember. Let's have another one. We've got the Drowner and we've got the Consign to Memory held up here. Am I deploying the Drowner for additional threat? Or do I need to have some way of interacting with the creature? Because they will get to play one creature at some point. So I think we're supposed to hold this back as removal or, you know, interruption. I'll attack. Let's get another fish in. Attack for 3. So we could jam this Floodpits and that gives us 8 damage. Yeah, I think that's fine at this point. Let's put this Vial trigger on stat. We'll leave it on 2. That's the correct number for us. We can sink into Stupor and Consign to Memory here. So we're absolutely cruising. Surprised I haven't tried any sort of Kozilek's command here. A Fleshraker. Alright, they saw us tapping for a spell there, and they conceded. Alright, that went okay for us. I think I would like to just do the same thing again, really. Shaper is like a mini Harbinger where it can interrupt with their land a little bit. So it's quite nice to have access to. Alright, we'll keep this one. Force of Will to protect our Harbinger. We can make 2 Harbingers and just get there with those, really. An Ancient Tomb with no follow-up. A Tide Shaper. I think I'm willing to play 1 Tide Shaper now, just to get something on board, because this will attack for 2 next turn anyway. If our opponent's got an Ancient Tomb, we could end up in a situation where every point of damage matters. A Blast Zone. Okay. I thought not Seer. I will counterspell this. I will pitch. I think it's the image here, because we need to make sure we hit our land drops. And we're going to shut this Blast Zone off this turn. Bash for 2. Next turn we can play the Harbinger. Do I want to just clock damage here? Or do I want to mess with their mana base? I think we just want to mess with their mana base. Let's see if they block here. I don't think they will block. They might do just to unlock their Blast Zone though. This makes it hard for our opponent to cast multiple spells. They might not be able to cast the first colourless spell they need. Alright, they had a Lotus Petal sandbagged. That is the first colourless spell they required. It sort of starts the chain rolling. The other option we had that turn was to Marshal the Pearl Trident, get in for 2 more damage, and then have the Wasteland. I can see another Fleshraker here. Oh, it's the Thought Not Seer. Right, so they're going to take our Lord here, which is unfortunate. We do have more Lords we can draw to. I wonder if we were supposed to go the aggressive line without the Harbinger here. They did have to have the colourless spell to start off with. Alright, do I want to trade? I don't want to trade. Draw a Lord. Did not draw a Lord. We drew an island. Is it even worth playing this out? I think it's still just about worth playing it out. I have to assume that our opponent sandbagged that Lotus Petal to make us play poorly around it, rather than just drawing it off the top. Because it makes sense to do that. Alright, we're going to see a colourless spell here. We're going to see an attack first. We can double block the Thought Not Seer. We do still have this Consign to Memory up. I would very much like to draw a card here. And Dismember here is obviously devastating. Why would I say that? Here comes a Dismember. There it is. Okay. Pretty bad news. Like, a Lord is still fine here. True-Name Nemesis. Now that is a Magic the Gathering card that I can get behind right now. Literally, I'm going to be hiding behind this. Alright, choose our opponent. This is a 2-turn clock as well. Sit here holding up a Consign. We'd like to bounce our Harbinger of the Tides here. We can just recast it next turn. If we counter this ability with our Consign, then play the Harbinger, then they're kind of out of luck here. Because this way they won't have the colourless mana to start the chain off again. You can have a 2-2. They can't attack with a Thought Knot, because we can just block it. They can attack with 2 creatures and lose 1. Aether Vial. Okay, we're definitely casting this, which has to use these lands. We may as well leave up the Aether Vial. So we attack here. Our opponent can crack back for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's fine. There's Aether Vial out. So now they need to find some colourless mana to start with. That was a really good game, actually. Like, we had kind of games that were a bit of a wash either way. And then that last game, there was a lot of interesting back and forth. Like, the decision where we didn't play the Lord was a really interesting one. I think getting the Harbinger makes sense. Our opponent had to have a Lotus Petal. They did have a Lotus Petal, so things kind of ended up being a lot more interesting in how we're going to manage this one. But yeah, Harbinger of the Sea is pretty good against Eldrazi, as it turns out. All right, let's go to round 3. Okay. We don't have a 1-drop, but we've got some 2-drops. We can spam a bunch of Vodalian Hexcatchers. We've got a Force of Will to make sure nothing really scary happens for a little bit. A Mountain. A Vexing Bauble. So this is just going to turn off our Force of Will. I think that's fine. We just let it go. Okay. So let's just jam the Hexcatcher here. And then we're just going to keep playing fish. Or illusory fish, even. Just keep them coming. Don't know what our opponents think about for so long here. They could have Simian Spirit Guide Red Blast. I'm expecting our opponents to be a painted deck. They could be a mono-red Stompy list, though. Because you sometimes see Vexing Bauble in those lists, too. Rite of Flame. Alright, we're doing a whole different thing here. We're just going to get Ruby Stormed. I don't think it's worth sacking our Hexcatcher for that. A Ruby Storm deck is unlikely to be able to go off this turn. Okay. Ral Monsoon Sage. That guy's pretty good. He's a 1-3. So getting through that guy, not the easiest right now. We'll play this. We'll name Merfolk. So we can tap this guy down to get in 1 damage. Or we can play a Hex Mage, another Hexcatcher. Let me just get another Hexcatcher in. And then we can try and work towards having 3-power creatures that can attack into Ral. A Desperate Ritual. Let's see if they do anything with this flip here. I think I have to counterspell this one. Don't feel good about that. If we draw a land, then I'm relatively happy with where we are. Did not draw a land. We're kind of just in the same boat we were last time. Pun intended. Alright, let's have a look what our opponent's going to attempt this turn. A Reckless Impulse. Let's say no to this one as well. Land, please, so we can get... Alright, we can get it going now. So we can go... Get ourselves a Hexcatcher. Get ourselves another Hexcatcher. Well, we could attack first and see if our opponent makes mistakes. This does have Flash. They're not going to block here. Alright, we have a lot of damage. We have a few Force Spikes kicking around. I will continue to sacrifice my Merfolk to stop them getting anything on the go. I'm hoping our opponent has to crack this Vexing Bauble for something at some point. Just tap their creature down. Get 4 damage in. If we can find a Lord next turn, we have lethal. A Burning Wish. Honestly, I think the Burning Wish is fine here. They can't get a free spell. They've been bricking on lands. Now, if they've just drawn a land and they're getting something here. Okay, just a Rite of Flame. They're scooping it up. All right. Somehow we got through that. What looks good here? Blue Blast looks very good. Consign to Memory can stop a bunch of things. It's an option we have available to us. Mistcaller stops creatures coming back. Yeah, so it won't stop the Ral when it flips. So I don't think we want that. There is an argument for the Faerie Macabres, because Faerie Macabres can stop their Past and Flames line. I think we're better off trying to use Blue Blast and stuff for that. Do I like Aether Vials here? They allow us to hold up counter magic nicely. I think the Floodpits Drowner looks pretty bad here, so we can at least trim 2 of those. Maybe just trim a 3rd one. Just call it a day, just have lots of aggro. Sure. I am down to clown with this. They don't have many targets for Wastelands either. But if we can hit anything with a Wasteland, it will be really, really potent. And it is kind of part of our mana base. Like, we can use the Wasteland for colourless mana. These are not what we want to see in our opening hand. Double Wasteland. They're going to send this one back and look for some actual islands. Okay, yeah, we keep this one. We're probably just binning off the Otawara, keeping lots of pressure up. That whole jam. A mountain from our opponents into a Vexing Bauble. Sure thing, opponent. This is a tough one. Are we just playing out the Vial, or are we trying to snag something with a Consign to Memory here? Because that could be really important. Do you think our opponent's going to have a second setup turn? I think so. So we're going to play the Aether Vial this turn, and then we can sit behind it. The Tide Shaper is something that wants us to play it, so we actually get the kicker off of it. Because we might be able to disrupt our opponent from having red mana at all. But we'll see what our opponent's up to. Like, we might just die this turn, but normally they can't just combo us out from here. Arrive Flame. Around Monsoon Sage. Was that it? Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, or Master of the Pearl Trident even. So we could try and just take our opponent off of red mana, because they missed them their land last turn. I think I'm willing to do that. Now, if our opponent plays a land this time, it will be off the top. If they crack a Bauble, then that turns on forces that we can draw. Alright. We are being the bad guy here. Right, drawing a card. Land. They did not. So they just turned on some more of our interaction if we can draw it. Alright, so we've got an island. That's certainly a handy one to have access to here. I will tap our Tide Shaper. They are not going to block here. They can't block anyway. Well, then they can. This doesn't have Island Walk on its own, does it? Let's see if they block. Right, let's put in a Master of the Pearl Trident. Let's flash in a Hexcatcher. And then we hit for 4 this turn. We're still holding up a Consign. We don't get to replicate it, but we've added a considerable amount of power to the board. They finally got a mountain. Okay. Now, this Consign's Memory might not do that much, but we can always sack something to the Hexcatcher. Right. They've got 1 blue floating. We'll let this round Monsoon Sage do its thing. Are they going to flip it? I don't really know what the flip side does. So we're going to sacrifice a Merfolk to counter this, and we're going to sacrifice our Master of the Pearl Trident. We want to keep more Hexcatchers in play. Right, they're paying here. And are we supposed to sacrifice this one as well to take out the Manamorphose? I think so. Maybe we're supposed to let that go, but that doesn't feel like that goes well for us. We will not up this. 2 is the perfect number. More Merfolk. Dash of 4. Are we supposed to let that Manamorphose go? We lost 2 creatures for it. That's quite a lot. A Seething Song. See, now this would have been a much better thing to hit with a Hexcatcher, but they're not going to cast that into the Hexcatcher. They've got a Reckless Impulse. So we could lose here. Yeah, I don't like the way I've played this one. A Burning Wish and a Rite of Flame. Desperate Ritual, Burning Wish, Rite of Flame, Mountain, Rude Medallion. That doesn't actually matter here because all their spells are 1 and a red at the moment. Okay, Jessica's Will is one that is certainly not like that. Can we get our opponent? Transform this. We can counter the trigger that gets this, but if they cast any other spell, then it gets to go again anyway. Past in Flames. Yeah, so that is an activated ability, not a triggered one, so it doesn't get hit by the Consign. Bonus round. Around Monsoon Sage. Past in Flames. I'm going to flip this Ral to get 2 copies of Past in Flames here. What are we doing with this Consign to Memory? We can try and hit the bonus round abilities. I don't think that works. I think we just have to try and hit the Storm when it eventually gets on the stack. Maybe if we hit our opponent for more damage, the Ral pings end up working in our favour. But they probably just get to combo last turn. And they get to do all this if we don't hit that Manamorphose. Right, so we've got another 8 spells I can dig with the Ral. We've just got to hope that our Consign to Memory will be enough. They could just go and get the Fiery Confluence. Yeah, so we can't really beat that. Okay, that'll do. We can counter some of the copies, but they're just going to keep going here. Alright, do we want to do anything differently? I don't think so. How good is the Consign to Memory is the question. Maybe this isn't that good. Maybe we'd rather have like a little bit more power in here. Get a couple more Drowners back in. Just have a couple of Consign. Because the Consign can hit the Ruby Medallion. But outside of that, it's not doing the most for us. This does not work, so we have to mulligan. Okay. What are we throwing back here? Probably the Wasteland. It's rarely useful. Sometimes you see Sandstone Needle or even an Urza Saga, because they can tick that up to get the Vexing Bauble, then just combo off with a Vexing Bauble in play. But I don't think it's that useful for us to have the Wasteland, that is. Alright, okay. Punished for not having the Wasteland. A Vexing Bauble, okay. Let's play out the OG. Good old Lord of Atlantis. Can we just clock them with stuff? Force of Will, unlikely to work. Oh, they're just going right now. Reckless Impulse. Okay, this might not do it for them. They don't have any cost reducer. But if they play like Ralzarek into Manamorphose. Reckless Impulse. So they can save these up for next turn. If they're saving them up, then I imagine they cast the Burning Wish and the Vexing Bauble here. Rends Resolve. Okay, just getting more cards for the following turn. Right, we'll name Merfolk. Have double blue card, but it doesn't matter here. Double blue card, Force of Will. Not going to do anything. If only the Force of Will was somehow a Merfolk spell, and we could somehow put Cavern of Souls mana into it. If only. So we bash for 3 this turn. Next turn we can bash for 8. But our opponents should be able to win with what they got Ever Exile in there. Yeah, if we kept that Wasteland instead of the Cavern, this turn would have looked a lot better. Probably not good enough to win the game, but would have looked better. You see the right flame here. They're just going to start doing their thing. Vexing Bauble is a real game changer for these sorts of decks. Because we can't just, for like the deck we're playing, because we can't just say, okay, we've got the Force of Will, we can counter the one thing that matters enough to buy us the time to just beat down. Because now we don't get that piece of interaction at all. And now we're just kind of at the mercy of our opponent. Burning Wish. It's very unlikely that our opponent cracks these baubles. Unless something goes really wrong. I chose a Rite of Flame. Building up some more mana over there. Past in Flames. Just generating some mana. They're holding back this Jeska's Will. Alright, more rituals. Okay, going for Rends Resolve first. Okay, so got a bonus round into... No, they need to Seething Song and then bonus round. I guess they can... Yeah, they can bonus round, then they can Manamorphose. Then they can Seething Song, because Manamorphose generates 4 mana from 2 now. So, Force of Will work under Vexing Bauble because we will get a copy. So our Force of Will is live now the bonus round is doing stuff. But where exactly we point this, I don't know. Maybe it's a Burning Wish. The problem is they still get the original Burning Wish. We just counter the copies, basically. But maybe that's enough to make a difference. Right, we're casting the Past in Flames again. And another bonus round. There's also a possibility they do the wheel that draws 6. Reforge the Soul, I think it's called. A Desperate Ritual. Yeah, you have lots of mana, opponent. Burning Wish. Problem is each one of these resolves separately. So we could counter the first Burning Wish. So we get 2 copies. They got Fiery Confluence over there. What are they going to get with the next one? A Grape Shot? Past in Flames. Okay. Alchemist Gambit. That's the one that draws them a bunch more cards. Empty the Warrens. Storm is 18. I don't think we can beat that selection of things that our opponent has. I think we'll call it a day there. Yeah, tough. Once before, you'd be able to like try and battle with the Force of Will. But Ruby Storm is inherently good against counterspells anyway because it's just got so much velocity. So it trades off a little bit of speed for velocity. And with the Vexing Bauble as well, just losing our interaction was just no good. I think the previous game where we sacrificed our guys, I think if we don't do that, then the Manamorphose resolves, then they can Seething Song with mana floating and we end up in a similar spot, but maybe we get to hit the Seething Song instead. But then if they've got any other rituals, and they did have other rituals that we saw, like the Desperate Ritual, then we just never get a spot to use our Hexcatchers. So I think we were just cooked in that one. Let's go to round 4. It's a touch slow without a 1-drop, but I think this is keepable. We do need like a maximum density of fish. Once upon a time, is this Eldrazi or is this some kind of like Cradle Control? Could be Cloud Post, potentially. Urza's Tower, that's Cloud Post. Alright, another matchup where we're going to lean into our Harbinger of the Tides. Vexing Bauble, sure. I don't believe we're going to be quick enough here. Alright, they didn't have the 4 mana on turn 2. So that is one thing. Alright, I'll hold open some stuff here. I think it's better to play the Hexcatcher rather than the Silvergill Adept here. Maybe our opponent has some kind of Kozilek's command line and we can hit it with the Hexcatcher. And Once Upon a Time. Okay. I don't think I want to sacrifice my Hexcatcher for that. But if they put like a big max value Kozilek's Command on the stack with like mana and drawing a card and scrying, then that's definitely worth Hexcatchering. But our opponent might play around Daze. Alright, so they got a Spirit Guide, so they can certainly play around if they don't use that to cast whatever spell they're casting. So they can go up to 4 mana here, with just pretty much any old land. Khan the Great Creator. Counter target non-creature spell, unless its controller pays 1. And they did exile their Spirit Guide for this. If they got another Spirit Guide, then that's going to be horrible for us. Don't do it to my opponent. Yay, we got there. Okay. 1 drop of some description? No. I think we're just going to be mana efficient and deploy the True-Name. This can always pressure a Khan, and it's very hard for them to deal with outside of Ensnaring Bridge. We then follow up with Lord of Atlantis, Phantasmal Image, and just be clocking for 5. We'd like to find the guy that puts an island counter on it. Tide Caller or something, I think it's called. That would be very handy to mess up this Urza's Tower or whatever. Although they haven't got anything to go with the Urza's Tower just yet. We're going to see a crop rotation? No. They're just floating and then so it's going to be a 1 ring. A Soaring Mycospawn. So you can go and get the Plane and Nexus. There it is, yeah. And that will make their Urza Saga tap for a lot more mana next turn. Another True-Name Nemesis. I don't think that is as good as deploying 2 Lords here. This way, if we draw another Lord, we can be attacking with 4/4s that they can't block with their Mycospawn. Or are you cracking that Bauble? Ooh, they're cracking the Bauble. That turns back on our Force of Will. Love to see that. That shows our opponent's in trouble. They've got 6 to 7 mana this turn. Possibly more if they've got like another tower or something in play. But we'll see. A Tabernacle. That's less enjoyable for us to play against, isn't it? A Disruptor Flute. Sure. They could name Force of Will here. Yeah, they have. So instead of discarding 2 cards, we've effectively discarded 1. The 1 ring. Okay. Not a big lover of that for us. Attacking with Mycospawn. Cowardice. Right, it's starting to slip away from us a little bit here. Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Alright. No point attacking because they have 1 ring protection. So we have them dead next turn if they don't 1 ring or deal with anything on our board. Because we play the Merfolk of the Pearl Trident, sorry, the Master of the Pearl Trident, and that gives us attack for 6 with the True-Name and then 4 with each of the Lord of Atlantis, which is 14. Our opponent's about to take 1 from the 1 ring, so that should be good enough, unless they've got things like Glimmer Posts and can gain a little bit of life here and there. Are you going to pay for your Mycospawn? Probably not. There we go. We do have a powerful sideboard card for this matchup, though. Yeah, Vexen Bauble does some interesting work against us, for sure. Khan the Great Creator that we cannot interact with here. We also have our Otawara in play, which is not where we want it. Because they're going to get a Ensnaring Bridge, probably. Mycosynth Lattice. That's pretty good as well, because we don't get to pay for our creatures anymore. So what are they getting here? They have 2 mana floating. If they get... And as towers is 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, so we just get locked out by the Tabernacle there. Yeah, that was unfortunate, but we should probably be losing that one, game 1 anyway. Alright, so we would like access to these Harbingers. The Consign to Memories, Kozilek's Command, the 1 ring, Khan, all those things. Get them out. Mistcaller, that's no good here. The Floodpits Drowner is probably not that exciting either, so that's probably what goes. And then that leaves us with something that looks like this, which I think is acceptable. There is an argument for Null Rod, but it's mainly just going to be hitting the 1 ring. I think we're better off having the more flexible thing of Consign to Memory. You don't want to take away too many of our fish. Tide Shaper is a good fish. It is a good fish. Okay, we'll keep this one. Let me just apply pressure. Once upon a time, you could just goldfish the Cloud Post decks pretty easily. But Modern Horizons 3 gave them more upgrades than any other deck, in my opinion. Let's get our Merfolk land ready. We're not going to play as Tide Shaper. We want that next turn to turn whatever land they play into an island. Is it going to be Plane of Nexus? Or is it going to be Cloud Post? There's this tower. And this might force removal out on a Tide Shaper, which might save our creature down the line. Well, this is a great one to put a counter on, because this is the linchpin that makes their deck work. Another Tide Shaper. Love to see that one. Alright, can we... Elvish Spirit Guide has been exiled here. There's a Swords to Plowshares. Okay, they're filtering it through that. Sure. Alright, they get a turn. with their Plane of Nexus, just a Tabernacle. Do I want to stop this Tabernacle or this Plane of Nexus? It's probably the Tabernacle, isn't it? It does give our opponent mana out of it when it wasn't producing mana before, but it does mean that our creatures won't just be dying all the time. More Swords to Plowshares. Okay. Oh, they didn't have another land, though. Otawara. We're doing this one so we can try and dig towards Harbinger of the Seas. True-Name Nemesis. I will play as Otawara. Another Plane of Nexus. Another Swords to Plowshares. Understood, opponent. All creatures have at the beginning of your upkeep destroy. Okay, so our creature will have that, so we'll die if it's a true name. Harbinger, just give them the business. Cavern of Souls, no Merfolk. So I think we're just double spelling here. We can pay for these and then deploy another Lord. And just have 12 points of power for the turn after, and that'll be a lethal. A Cloud Post. Disruptor Flute. Are they going to name Harbinger of the Seas here? That would make sense. Wasteland. Okay. I'll just pay for these. Phantasmal Image. I think it's just better to get this one in. This is 8. And we have 12 next turn. And we can make that lethal if we draw a land. No, wait, it is lethal already. 8 plus 12 is 20. Maths. I think that's better than letting one of our guys die and trying to hope to draw the Harbinger, which is another option we had available to us. This is the turn our opponent needs to put some sort of like One Ring style effect in play. Khan. Do you have anything for 1 mana that helps with the Khan, or are they just trying to hope that we don't attack into them? And instead go for the Khan. Ensnaring Bridge. We have lethal on board. Let's pay for our lovely little fish. Consign to Memory. That's exactly what I wanted to draw here. Attack with all creatures. Our opponent. Lethal. Alright. We tied the match up without even having to use our big haymaker. Nice. Should we just see if we can do that again? I think we just go back in. I like the configuration. So what does this hand do? We've got some Force of Wills early, which is nice to hit on some big plays. We have the Mana Disruption as well. I think we keep this one. Just play the Otawara. Play ourselves an Aether Vial. Cloud Post. It feels like our opponent has a crop rotation or something. Cavern of Souls. Let's play that one out. No Merfolk, obviously. Get a little Tide Shaper kicked in there. Alright, a little bit of mana disruption. A Wasteland. Don't know if our opponent wants to be the one to fire off a Wasteland here. We have a Wasteland now. Okay, we'll attack. Let's put in a Silvergill Adept. Once upon a time, a crop rotation with 1 mana floating. I'll say no to that one. Put in Silvergill Adept. We drew a Wasteland, sure. Take out this green source. Alright, our opponent's scooping it up to the Wastelands. Alright, so that's 4 rounds in, and we are 3-1 with Merfolk. The Horrors of INNSMOUTH are doing good jobs, and the one we lost was a 1-2 as well, so deck is feeling weirdly nice. Let's go to the final round and see if we can put a 4-1 on the board. We cannot keep this hand. It doesn't have any blue mana. This has 1 blue land. We're on the draw. It does have the Vial. I will keep this one. What are we supposed to get rid of? Probably one of the Master of the Pearl Tridents. So we have the most varied selection of names. Things like Cabal Therapy, and they all kind of do the same thing. And we also have the highest variety of different effects. So we can counter spells, we can tap a creature, we can just make our guys big. That all seems fine to me. Well, that's a cool land. What is that? March of the Machines, whatever it's called. Brothers War. A Dalthy Voidwalker. Okay, we should be able to clock this. A Thoughtseize. Now that might change things. They can take our Aether Vial here. Or they can just take one of our Lords and work through it. The Floodpits Drowner can obviously deal with this Dalthy Voidwalker. None of our cards are good enough that they'll give up their Dalthy Voidwalker for it, which is always nice. Sometimes you just get Dalthy Voidwalker, Thoughtseize. Oh, your opponent had Emrakul. I guess I win next turn. We found the land we wanted, so that's something. I think we play this tapped. Our life total is going to be a resource that's probably going to get leveraged in some kind of race. It does expose us to a Wasteland, which is bad. But we can only play around so many things here. Alright, there's the Wasteland. That's pretty bad. They can play the bounce spell off of the Dalthy Voidwalker anytime they want. Cavern of Souls. Alright. Yeah, we've definitely got punished there. Our opponent's going to go and get their second land. A swamp. So they are very much in mono black. The fetch lands are probably just for a couple of Surveil lands. And turning on Revolt for Fatal Push. Him to Turak. Go ahead. Of course it took the land. Why would it take anything other than our land? Okay, come on, deck. Like, if we can just play the cards in our hand 3 turns in a row, I think we win this game. Obviously depends what our opponent's got. They haven't had to leverage any removal yet, so it's certainly possible. They got some removal spells over there. What do you want to jam? Let's get the OG out there. Lord of Atlantis up and running. He hits for more than the Hexcatcher. That's why I think it's better to put him in first, because this is probably going to be a race. So we go to 11 here. We bash for 3, put our opponent to 14. And then the numbers keep going up for our side because we are making lots of lords. No play for our opponent. This could be Shoulder's Edict or something. Let's get Trident, friend. Orcish Bowmasters is bad here, but we just have to play into what we have. I'm going to keep this sink into Stupor because I think being able to bounce there, Death Voidwalker might end up being a clutch play. And playing it out might just get eaten by a Wasteland. We've already got the mana we need. Alright, we connected. That's something. Oh, so they didn't want to trade their Bowmasters for our Lord of Atlantis. That's interesting. Because they could have pinged it and then double blocked. And just treated the Orcish Bowmasters as a removal spell. And just keep winning the race that way. They have a removal spell from Master of the Pearl Trident here. That would be very strong. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So we might have to be getting a bit more defensive now. I don't think we can win this race. On 5 here. We can't block this. We can block these 2 and then maybe have to bounce this. So I guess we're playing out the Merfolk Lord. If we attack with one guy, we put our opponent to 11. We block one guy. Go to 1. Next turn, we attack for 8. And that's not lethal. So I think we have to hold back on blocks. Try and take out both Orc Army and Orcish Bowmasters. And then try and draw the removal spell. Or the land for the removal spell. I don't think they're going to send in the Bowmasters and the Orc Army here. There's no reason to. Just nibble away with the Voidwalker. Maybe if we send just one Lord of Atlantis in then. And then our opponent has to... They can... Like 4 damage is very similar to 3 damage from where we sit. Alright, the Voidwalker, in it comes. Down goes my life total. Barragoyf, that's so big. So big. Wasteland. So bounce this. Then we have to bounce this. Then we can block this. This is horrible. This means it's going to force the action right now. An opposition agent, that does not impact our deck. And Wasteland our Wasteland, they are. So we can double block and kill this. We lose both of our guides if we do that. But if we're chump blocking, we're losing anyway. I don't know how we're supposed to win this game. I think the answer is we don't. Yeah, I don't think we have anything that gets us out of this. Alright, so what do we need in a matchup like this? Our Blue Blasts don't do anything. Our Consign to Memory probably doesn't do anything either. Harbinger of the Seas doesn't do anything. Null Rods don't do anything. The Graveyard Hate might do something. I don't know what our opponent's deck consists of. That's the problem. If they do have a graveyard-based line, we might be interested in this, but they didn't really play towards much graveyard stuff, right? It was the Bowmasters, the Opposition Agent, that sort of jam. It's just like mono-black stuff. They might have like 1 or 2. They might just be running the Metamorphosis Fanatic. I think we just have to go back in with the original 60. Mistcaller can do Graveyard Hate stuff while also just being a guy, so I think that's better than something like a Ghost Vacuum. I would never activate the Ghost Vacuum realistically here, so... Alright, yeah, this one's fine. True-Name Nemesis, pretty good. Our opponent's definitely going to have some amount of Edicts in there. 75, but we can worry about that when we get there. A Swamp. A Thoughtseize. We have double True-Name Nemesis. Very hard to take us off of that one. I took one of the True Names. I'm not surprised given how backbreaking that card can be. Force of Will, quite a nice pickup there. What are we going to find? A Phantasmal Image. Okay. How many True-Name Nemesises are we going to try and deploy? We need to find a land next turn. And we need our Cavern of Souls to avoid a Wasteland. Right, no play from our opponent. And Orcish Bowmasters. I really want to deal with that right now. Because what I want to do is keep our board empty so the True Name dies to the Edict. They might have a Plague Engineer in their deck as well, which would be extra sad times. If we draw a land here, just dump all our stuff into play. We did not draw a land here, just dump all our stuff in. Put in this Lord. We'll bash for 3 here. We can Floodpits any of their creatures that come out of this. I don't really want to put our Aether Vial up to 3, but it might be worth it just for the True Name, because getting that in play is a big deal. The third land is this. Okay, it's just a Doughty Voidwalker. I think I'm going to add some power to the board here. Go to sleep, Doughty Voidwalker. This is kind of a big turn for us. I think we are going to put it up to 3. We have 2 mana here anyway. Go attacks. I am kind of worried that our opponent has a Plague Engineer. Like if they remove our Master and then Plague Engineer, we're in trouble. We can put in the True-Name Nemesis in our opponent's end step. I don't think we need to play out the Silvergill Adept. Maybe we're supposed to though. It's going to get harder to play once the True-Name leaves our hand. Like keeping up the mana for the Floodpits Drowner in case they do try and remove our board somehow. Like Toxic Deluge or something, but I guess that would kill their guy anyway. An Emperor of Bones. Okay. What are you going to exile? Is it the Orcish Bowmasters or the Troll of Khazad-dûm? Right, we've got 2-turn clock with our True-Name Nemesis here. If we can find ourselves another Lord, that helps. If we can find... Okay, that doesn't help. So they get 6/6. They block 2 creatures. Yeah, that just doesn't go well for us, does it? Yeah, we now have this sort of Silvergill Adept stinking up our hand a bit. We should have played it before. Right, let's just attack with our 4/2. They can't block it. They can make a troll. Right, they're going to 5 life. What are they going to do here? Go for the throat on our Lord. Yep. They take 3 here. This is where they have the Plague Engineer and we die. That will win the game for them if they have that. Because it will kill our True-Name Nemesis as well. I didn't just completely windmill slam it. They might have been playing to it and didn't draw it, and now they have to work out what the next best play is. Or they might just be slower on us, putting all these fish in the bin. Doughty Voidwalker. That's not going to stop us. Right, they're jamming in the Troll of Khazad-dûm. We can't block that anyway. I think our opponent's plan is if we block with the Floodpits Drowner, they can get it back. That doesn't even work either. So, because our creature has protection. This is 10, 13, so we can block here. I just don't know what our opponent can have here to beat the True-Name. So say yes to the first one, no to the second one. I should have attacked with the Floodpits Drowner as well, to be honest. It's got vigilance. Didn't really matter, our opponent had nothing there. We had a flash in, force spike if we needed it. Yeah, I think everything there is fine. I think we just submit and go again. Like the Mistcaller can work against a Emperor of Bones activation if we need it to. I like the True-Name here. I think this is okay. We can keep this one. Have to work out what we're doing with these Tide Shapers. Are we just playing them as aggressive threats, or are we trying to mess with our opponent's mana? I don't mind getting one out like this, because the next one will be a 2/2 when we Tide Shaper it. We just want to curve out a little bit here. This gives us a little bit of insulation against any Edict effects. It's not the most exciting though, is it? A 1 mana 1/1. But it will attack for 2 next turn. We can maybe cut our opponent off of black spells. We're probably going to see something like a Doughty Voidwalker here. Orcish Bowmasters, that's pretty good. We're playing non-wastelandable lands first. We cast this with Kicker. Just jam up their land a little bit. This also gives us a bigger creature which can check their board at present. And then we can just play True-Name. I don't want to play True-Name onto an empty board. I want to make sure I've got another creature that can soak up an Edict effect. We might have shut them out of things like Doughty Voidwalker here. Right, just killing our guy, which unlocks their land. Get Thoughtseize as well. I could Phantasmal Image their Orcish Bowmaster to ping their 1/1. I could do that. I don't want, like I said, I don't want to play out the True-Name into an Edict effect. That just feels pretty loose. I think we will Phantasmal Image here. Am I more scared of the Bowmasters or the Orc? We can bounce the Orc. I don't want them to bring back the Bowmasters. I think I'm actually going to ping the Orc while I know they can't grow it. This gives us a little bit more fodder for True-Name. Obviously, the Orc army is irrelevant for Shoulder's Edict. But if our opponent wants to spend any resources on dealing with this stuff, then our Lords can kind of sit and play. It's the Barragoyf that I'm worried about. True-Name Nemesis can check it for a while, but it's unlikely to kill the Barragoyf. A Doughty Voidwalker, sure. So they're not going to attack with their Bowmasters. We get to come in with True-Name now. Am I attacking my opponent with either of these things? I think I'm attacking with the army. I'll happily trade that for a Bowmasters. And the 1 point of damage is good because we already have their creatures checked with what we have in play. Please don't play Plague Engineer. You don't see a lot of Plague Engineers now, but that doesn't mean that they aren't about. Richard, what do you need 5 mana for? Or is it going to be double spelling? Right, so there's the Plague Engineer. I assume they're not going to name Orc here. Against our Merfolk deck. Biological Warfare, very unfair. Yep. Maybe we're supposed to play out the Pearl Trident guy first. But once they get the clock in play, we need to have our thing that's going to start racing them. I don't know how scared I'm supposed to play a Plague Engineer. Not seen one for a while. Are they thinking about Doughty Voidwalker? Because that can go and get them a Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Oh, sorry, a True-Name Nemesis. And then that is pretty bad. At least we don't have Lord of Atlantis, because that would pump it. I just attack for 3 here. I think I'm better off into the Doughty Voidwalker than I am into a True-Name Nemesis, because at least we can bounce this if we need to swing a race. Right, let's play a 1-1. Attack here. See, now if they try and sack the Doughty Voidwalker to get a Merfolk, to get our True-Name Nemesis, we can then sink into Stupor to put that back into our hand, and that would be real sick. A Barrow Goyf. Do not think we can beat Barrow Goyf. So we're going to Force of Will it. This will put Force of Will under the Voidwalker, but I imagine the Voidwalker is just turning sideways every turn. I doubt they're attacking with the Plague Engineer here. I'm just going for the True Name. Like, for the most part, that's the same. It's only different when we start drawing things like Lord of Atlantis, which is obviously what we're about to draw. Okay, we didn't draw it. Play this name Merfolk. We don't have no reason to keep lands in hand. We're not attacking here. And maybe we just play this whole game slower, just get the Master of the Pearl Trident out. Like, we played around the Edict. Maybe we're supposed to play around the Edict and the Plague Engineer. Although it does just mean that at any point, if they just kill our Master of the Pearl Trident, we just lose it anyway. Another Barrow Goyf. Well, that's terrifying. No blocking allowed. Alright, deck. Otawara. This has protection from everything we do. So we can't Otawara this. We can bounce this. That's not very good. We can bounce this. That's not very good. We could triple block this, bounce the Engineer, trade off the Barrow Goyf for our whole board. That sounds bad as well. I don't believe we have any good options, which is a bad spot to be in. I think like mono black aggro stuff is surprisingly good right now. I think it had a really high win rate at Eternal Weekend, like 70-something%, or about 70%. There weren't many people playing it though, so those numbers are a little bit sketchy. But I think it's just a pretty powerful thing you can do. A Doughty Voidwalker. We don't really have anything that's like a catch-up here. Yeah, I think we can call it a day. We're not winning this one. We were bested by the black deck. So we finished with a 3-2 in the end. I think we could definitely win that matchup if we played that one slightly differently and gave a little bit more respect to the Plague Engineer. I was just trying to respect the fact they had a clock going on. But maybe we're supposed to play that one a bit slower, and I'm a bit annoyed that I didn't at least try that. Because we had a little bit of life to work with, and the True-Name Nemesis can catch us up quite quickly. Alright, let's talk about this deck then. So, do I think Merfolk is good now? No, to be honest. I still don't think Merfolk is where you want to be. But it felt a lot better than I thought it would feel. Like, normally when you play this, you just kind of do nothing, and then your opponent runs over you with better creatures. And that happened in a few of the games we had. But I think the Floodpits Drowner is kind of a nice upgrade for this deck, giving us the ability to have a Vigilance threat that can actually just remove something and be a removal. Yeah, we can have a removal spell if we need it, which is nice. Tide Shaper is pretty high stocks these days because our opponent in many matches is going to have access to a bunch of lands that we want to stop. So the Wasteland and the Tide Shaper package is really strong. I'm always surprised that we don't have Harbinger of the Seas in the main though, because that card is really good in the meta right now. Whether it's Cloud Post, whether it's Eldrazi, whether it's Painter, it's also pretty good against some of the draws that the blue-black decks can have. It allows them to not be able to play around double spelling very well. It's not great in that matchup, but it's fine. It can sometimes do some worthwhile disrupting. I think lots of Phantasmal Images like this may be too many, and you can trim here. It feels like these 6 cards, let me just move them into one pile for you. I think these 6 cards here are probably where I'd look at making changes, but the rest of it felt pretty fine for what it was. Obviously, the Mistcaller is a bit of a meta call right now. It wasn't very good for us today because of the decks we played against, but when Blue-Black Reanimator is nearly a quarter of the field, this card's pretty good. So yeah, surprisingly good time with Merfolk. I still think it's, you know, not going to be a tier 1 to 2 deck at all. But, you know, I didn't feel embarrassed playing this today, which is something. And I think that's us done for today, really. Not much more to say about Merfolk. The horrors of INNSMOUTH did come to town for us and do a nice bit of winning, but I'm still not sold on this as a deck that I want to be taking to any tournaments. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Tomorrow we have the full-on Halloween spooky deck, so make sure you tune in for that one. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.